instead of waiting for a show to book me to get on a show, I could go create a show with a bar or venue, and I'll produce the show and I'll bring the other comics in, and I could give myself time on stage to practice. So I went from doing 3 or 4 shows a year at the Houston Improv to doing 200 shows a year by creating and cultivating this segment of comedy that otherwise didn't exist before I was doing it. Guys, thank you so much for taking the time to listen to my story. And don't forget, it doesn't matter where you've been. That doesn't dictate where you're going. Please remember to like the video and subscribe to Brandon's Commentary for more success stories like this. Thanks. I appreciate every one of y'all. Like you said, you remember me being funny, being at a room full of people and just, hey, that's what she said, and making people laugh is very different from being a successful comedian. I was fortunate that when I got out, I played a lot of sports. I played softball, co-ed volleyball. I was bowling in leagues and golfing. I had a big community of people in Houston that knew me, and I haven't migrated far from here. So when I started doing comedy, I had a lot of support, a lot of people that would come out, and so things went really well. I did pretty well to start. Of course, I say that from that perspective because I watched my very first time on stage and it's fucking cringy.
That's to be expected.
It is. So, however, if you watch that through the lens of this is the first time this guy has ever done it, it was a good performance.
Yeah.
And so I started doing it as a hobby. Of course, I had another career that I was, that paid my bills, and I was, financially very successful with that. So comedy was just a hobby, and I would do a show 2 or 3 times a year from like 2013 to 2016. Sell at the Houston Improv. Hey, we're doing it again. I would write a new 30 minutes every single time and perform it in front of the same 400 people, which is what I thought comedy was, and it wasn't, obviously.
I remember you posting about you were writing these things and you were like, this ain't easy.
It's not.
Trying to write all this.
All of it,
content.
yeah. And so I had never done any open mics. I had no idea about the community of comedy in Houston. Of course, there's a community in anything that you're doing. And I just did it kind of with a buddy of mine who was a comic. He helped me get on the track for it. I did the work, and we sold like 7 or 8 shows out at the Houston Improv in, for 3 or 4 years. And by that barometer, yeah, it was very successful. I was very good at doing it. But by a comedy standard, it was painfully bad. But then I found that out. I started doing it more because I thought I was really good at it. And I was told I was really good at it by, my friends and fans that were coming. And then I started meeting comedy people, and they're like, nah, bro, you really suck at this. Like, it's very bad. And here's why. And they're like, it wasn't unique. I wasn't very artistic with it. I'm a high energy guy, clearly. And it was kind of...
You leave your shows hoarse.
Yeah. And I would do like very low-hanging fruit style jokes, which for a fan or a friend, they're going to be like, dude, that was really funny. But for a comedy person, they were like, yeah, that was cheap and hacky. So it was kind of this weird dichotomy that I was getting, like from my friends and fans. It was like, man, you're great. And from comedy people, they're like, dude, you're fucking not good. And so I wanted to work at it because and it was the first community I've ever been in where I wasn't just accepted or I wasn't liked, I guess, and even in prison, like people liked me. I was a funny guy. It was cool to be around and played sports and whatnot. And in school, I didn't struggle making friends. And this was the first group of people because they didn't like what and how I was doing things. I was fortunate that Venn diagram I was talking about was doing comedy and being funny, but I was also able to, had business savvy and acumen that I could use to, instead of waiting for a show to book me to get on a show, I could go create a show with a bar or venue, and I'll produce the show and I'll bring the other comics in, and I could give myself time on stage to practice. So I went from doing 3 or 4 shows a year at the Houston Improv to doing 200 shows a year by creating and cultivating this segment of comedy that otherwise didn't exist before I was doing it.
Yeah.
Because there was no comedy at Duke's or Stats or, these other venues that I initiated, comedy shows there. So it gave me a lot of time to be on stage. And then it started to blossom, and it started, I started to be more accepted in the community. Also, I was paying the comics a lot of money, producing all these shows that they weren't otherwise getting as well. So, and then it blossomed, and then it blew up. And my thing, especially from being in prison and the things that we were, struggling with and how steep of the hill to climb, everything was like extremely difficult with having to work hard for something, but I made straight A's in college. I graduated summa cum laude, made my first parole. I busted my ass not to, I did what I had to do. I didn't join gangs. And when I got out, I was like, I wasn't going to let anybody outwork me. There's guys that are funnier than me, still lots of guys that are funnier than me, but I won't let anybody outwork me. So I was the guy producing the show, promoting the show, headlining the show. I would get there 3 hours early and set up the tables the way I wanted them to give a better product. And I busted my ass for 5 years doing that. And I wasn't just sitting around working on my material all the time, because I had done 2 or 3 hours of material from these other shows that was all different. So I took the best of that and made it better. And then I got 2019, I started doing it exclusively. My other business was no more, and it really took off. And then I've always been a hustler, so started, parlaying that into production, which helped my comedy. And then I met guys like Chad Prather, shout out Chad, who was like a big brother to me in comedy. This is a dude selling out theaters with, 4 or 5 million followers on social media. Hilarious. His mind's like a Pentium chip. And he saw me and he thought it was funny. We did a couple of shows together and I made him laugh. He shouted me out on Blaze TV on his television show. And then he asked me to co-headline a tour with him. And when we were, in Airbnbs in other cities and on tour buses, I was like, hey, why did you pick me? There's other guys that are funnier than me, clearly. And, and even though, I was doing very well at the time, he goes, because the first show we did together, you were doing the show with me and you were there 3 hours early moving tables around because you gave a shit. He goes, and I've never seen somebody work that hard. Yeah. So I knew that these doors would open if I worked hard, even if I wasn't working hard just on my material or promoting myself. If I'm working in the trenches, those other doors still open. And I think Chad took me to 40 cities last year. And then I met Dustin Sims, who saw what I was doing with Chad. He gave me an opportunity to do some shows with him. Shout out Dustin, man, much love. And he picked me up. I took a hosting spot with Dustin after I was doing, headlining, which a hosting spot is like the introductory, like I'm the first guy out there. Yeah. You're basically jumping on the grenade. And I took a couple of shows with Dustin, paid for my own travel just for $100 or $150 just to be on the show. Like, let me show you what I can do. And I lost money on 3 or 4 shows. And I told him, I'm like, hey, I want to do this with you, man, if you'll give me a shot. And this year he's, I got 50 shows booked for 2022 already. Yeah. And, he and I are going to have 70 shows, and he booked me for all of his shows because of that. And and I've gotten, I'm funny. Like I do well on stage. Come to a show, you'll see. But it was work, dude. It was just work. And yes, I'm funny. Yes, it's natural. But people see you go on stage and make people laugh for 30 minutes. They come up to me after the show like, hey, I want to do this. Can I do this next with you? I'm like, no, you fucking can't. Because you don't know what went into this. Yeah. And but it's been amazing, man. I've completely blown up. I went from, like I said, doing 3 shows a year to I did 200 shows in 2021, and I'm going to do more than that this year. So it's awesome.
It was cool for me to see this for you for a number of reasons. Number one, because I knew that you were funny, but it was interesting to see it transform into something more professional. Right. And when you were posting things about how hard it was, just sitting there trying to come up with content, and now to hear from you that other people in the community were like telling you, like criticizing and coaching you. Yeah. I don't think people realize that. A lot of the controversy right now with Dave Chappelle, people are learning from Chappelle how much of an art form it really is. Of course. And so you were experiencing that. Of course. And that was just cool to me to see that, like, it's not just like you being in the penitentiary day room clowning folks. Yeah. It's evolved into something very specific. Right. And thought-provoking. It
is. And it went from being, I guess anytime, like if me and you go play pickup softball at the park with our buddies, or even a league, it's structured, it's regimented, it's sanctioned or whatever. But then if you look at what Jose Altuve does, that's a job for him. There's reps, and then the comedy became, hey, just go up and be funny on stage, which obviously took some work to go up there, into doing the reps and doing the work and the prep. And so it's still, make no mistake, the work side of it's fun too. And I get as big of a thrill from landing a new deal or closing a deal with this, with a new show or a new venue. I get as big of a rush from that as I do from getting a standing ovation leaving stage. Like, I like the business side of it too. Yeah. It's equally rewarding, but Mom always said, like, find something you love doing and try to make a career out of it. And there's nothing, I found out I didn't have the equipment for porn, so I couldn't do that. So comedy was it. But it's been unbelievably successful, and now all my peers are like, hey, you're going to be on Netflix one day. You're going to make it. You're going to do this. And I'm like, I'm laden with the avalanche of people who told me, like, hey, you're not, and I'm not, make no mistake, I'm not an artistic comic. You're not, I'm not Dave Chappelle by any stretch, but I'm good at making people laugh, which was weird because the paradox from walking off stage, having killed a room, and everyone's like crying, laughing at me. And then I go up to the other comics and they're like, yeah, that was fucking terrible. Yeah. I'm like, what do you mean? Did you, if the currency of what we do is laughter, like I'm widely successful. And they're like, yeah, you did, easy, hacky jokes. And I was like, what does that even mean? Like, I just thought I was supposed to make people laugh. And they're like, no, this is like an art. I'm like, well, I'm not Picasso. All right. Yeah. Like, so it was a very weird dynamic starting out. And it was the first time you remember in prison, I was a popular guy. Like, people liked me. Yeah. And in high school I was too. And it was the first time I was just shunned. Like, and I was like, man, I don't understand. Like, I'm successful, I drive a nice car. I'm nice to you can say what you want about me. I'm a nice guy and I'm nice to everybody. And that people would be like, yeah, Jesse's a fucking prick. They're like, and the people who knew me, they'd be like, you think Jesse's a prick? Have you ever talked to him? They're like, no, but just look at him. Yeah. And so I guess that would be the part when you talked about earlier about what challenges have you dealt with. I guess the physical, the tattoos, and I'm like intimidatingly handsome. I get it. And, so I get it, the hate. So, that would be it though. But people who know me don't have a different perspective, which is what I care about. And it used to really bother me, and now I'm to a point, like, I've reached a level of success in comedy where I don't care anymore. Like, I don't care. Yeah. Well, I guess when you get involved in that niche of artists, then the standards are jacked up. It's a lot more competitive. I see this like in music. You got people that make music and they can move the crowd, but as an artist, like we used to, I don't know where you're at with the mumble rap, but several years ago, the mumble rap was like, these are not artists. Yeah. But they're making a ton of money. Correct. But when you get involved in that niche of actual artists, and the standards are and that's a good correlative, and that's a very good perspective, because that's exactly what it was. It was like, cool, go up there and go, look, I got a small penis, and everybody's like, he's got a small penis. And they laugh, and they're like, comics are like, this shit's trash, bro. Yeah. And I'm like, but I did well. I made it. I did what I was supposed to do. So that was disheartening at first, but I think I found a really good niche in the industry where I'm producing and promoting shows. I have especially locally in Houston, I have a huge following, and I'm super fortunate. And I'm working with some of the big guys like Dustin, man, Chad, guys like that, like huge guys that are doing several hundred ticket sales in dozens and dozens of cities a year. Are taking me with them now. And they're not taking me because I have a big following in Houston. They're taking me because I do well on stage. And so that was kind of the affirmation that got me out of that weird funk of why am I not being accepted? So right, but in addition to, it's not just like raw talent. Like you said, you were there 3 hours early. Oh yeah, still am. Yeah. A lot of people coming out of the penitentiary, we do have that motivation to just go above and beyond what everybody else does. You remember White Chocolate? I do. Elliot, Charles Elliott. Yeah. So his story. He recently sold his air conditioning business for millions. Chris.
And in his story, you know, when he tells about how he got his start, he was making air conditioning service calls out of his Camaro. He'd just go re-up at Home Depot or whatever he needed. And then it grew into a business that eventually sold. But that was because Elliot don't sleep. Like, Elliot is on it. If you need him at 8 o'clock at night or 9 o'clock, he's going to be there.
Yeah.
And so that's a very common thing that you've got going on as well. So it's more than just like your innate humor. It's like
for
you're
sure.
going to bust your ass to make it happen.
It's definitely that. Because if you take the people who are more successful than me, 98% of them, it's because they're funnier. 2% it's because they worked harder. So I get where, I know where my strengths are, you know, but if I have a pie chart of, it's always like this huge red part and this one yellow sliver, and the yellow slivers, whatever. It can be 80-20 hard work and then 20% funny, and I'll take that, because the hard work doesn't stop. That doesn't go in a slump, so you don't shut that off. So I've been real fortunate for that, and a lot of people do. And I say that, but guys like Brian McGinnis at Duke's, is a buddy of mine who, when I started producing shows, he gave me my first monthly show, and he gives me a good budget that I make decent money on. That it was something that I could plant a flag and really, he gave me a shot. And that was 3 or 4 years ago, and it's still going. And because guys that were friends of mine took chances on me. So it's not wanting to let people down, I think, is another big thing. Nobody wants to fail, but when you fail in comedy, it's a big fucking flop. It's different, So it was. I didn't want to let the people down who, like Chad. Chad could call right now. I'm walking out of this interview. I like you, but this shit's over. Yeah. And Dustin too. So these guys are widely successful independently. They don't need me, but I feel like if I bring as much to the table as I can, not just the comedy, but the business acumen, the hustle side of it, the work ethic, that I'll do the things that you don't want to do. Because it was just like with my first townhome. It was like, I can't go somewhere else. Even with my college degree, I graduated summa cum laude, and I can't just walk up to any regular company because I have an aggravated robbery in my past. Yep. So when you give me a shot, I'm not going to take it for granted, because I'm not the guy who's like, fuck this. I can't Antonio Brown people. I can't do that. Actually, he can't do it anymore. He can't go anywhere else. But he did it 5 times before it just became like, hey, we're not dealing with the cancer that you are. We can't be cancerous. We're already terminal, I think, with our past. So it's given me, I like what you said. I have never even thought about it like that. But all the guys that I know that got out, we have that extra work ethic. Because we're not picking cotton for the host squad at 5 in the morning, with horseback cowboys standing over us with guns. So we're doing, everything we do is better than that. Yeah. So, and we had to do that. There was no days off of that shit. So. God, I hated that. Yeah, it's like, people are, and they're like, you actually picked cotton? I'm like, okra is worse. Okra will burn your fucking arms up. So I was like, yeah, we did that. And it's just funny. I'm glad you said that, because there was people talk about what do you do in there? And I was like, how it's physically taxing. People ask me how prison was. They're like, were you scared? I'm like, yeah, we saw fights. We saw riots. I saw a couple people get killed. I never felt in fear of those things because I didn't put myself in those positions. Right. You can navigate through the bullshit. I was like, I tell people all the time, it was lonely. I was like, it was lonely, and it was sad, and it was a bunch of vulnerable men who didn't want to look vulnerable around each other. Yeah. And I was like, it was just, they're like the physical side of it. People were like, oh, did you get raped? Did you get that? And I was like, the shit you see on TV doesn't fucking happen in prison, especially now. I said, it was just mentally defeating. I was like, it's designed mentally. We were on Torres unit, and we were picking cotton, and we had to fill up a mattress bag every day, each person. We couldn't go in until everybody had their whole mattress bag full. That's a lot of fucking cotton. So we pick all this cotton, and you can say, and then I remember we did it for 90 days or whatever cotton season is. I don't even know. And then we had 20 acres of cotton. Well, we picked a whole acre of cotton, and it took us 3 months. And then I remember the last day we go back out there to clean the fields up. They ran combines through the field and picked the other 19 acres in a weekend. Yeah. And I was like, you just sent 15, 20 guys out there to be defeated and whooped our ass, and whatever sense of pride we had in accomplishing this task, which you have a sense of accomplishment in anything you do, it was just morally defeating. And then when that was done, they would have us move this huge mound of dirt, like the size of my house, with shovels and wheelbarrows from one side of the railroad tracks, like a quarter mile down. We move the dirt. We finally get this huge mound of dirt. They give us the day off early on the last day after like 4 weeks of doing this. We move it. The next Monday, we come back out there and they're like, all right, now move it back. And we're like, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah.
It was just that defeating. So now getting away from that like demoralizing, crippling, mentally handicapping or whatever work to, man, I'm doing comedy and making people laugh. I'm doing business deals and making money. And that's why that whole sense of happiness and elation, like that doesn't go away anymore. So, but it's because of that. And I never lose perspective and that epiphany and those things where, you know, I'm fortunate by any standard, even somebody who hadn't been to prison, getting to do comedy for a living, it's not a bad fucking gig. Like, let's be honest. But I feel even more appreciative. People ask me that too when you get home, like, you know, what was the biggest transition or what's the biggest thing you learned? It was appreciation. I appreciate being able to hug my mom. I appreciate being able to eat a meal that I want. Appreciate, you know, being able to go to comedy clubs, go out, be free, you know, wear what I want. Go look at my closet. It's ridiculous. I don't need that many clothes and shoes. But when you wear a white jumpsuit and Rydell tennis shoes for 8 years, you just appreciate things differently.
Yeah.
And I think as long as you have those things and you put all of those tools in your bag leaving there, that's what preps us for the success that we've had. Because you can say what you want, but I think it's a very rigid dichotomy of people when they get out. You either do really, really well and work really, really hard, or you don't give a fuck and you just give all the way up, you know, and you go all the way back and regress back to where you were before. It doesn't seem like a lot of people just get out and just stagnate.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So.
Yeah. So when I first went to prison, I ended up on the Gurney unit over there in Beaver, Cofield area. And it was August of 1999 or maybe 2000.
I was there in 99.
Yeah. And they put me on the whole squad. Yeah. And so it's August, it's like 105 degrees. And we go out into the fields and we're not doing anything except hitting the dirt. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Just chain gangs, hitting the dirt, and the dust is just creating a cloud. And after a while, you can't like rub anything off because you're just caked in mud and you're spitting it and you're just tasting dirt.
Yeah.
And then you got to run in there. And my first day coming back from the fields, the boss calls me out of line, right? We're all naked and just drenched with mud and everything. He's, come here, white boy. And I get out of line. He's like, let me see your hands. And I show him my hands. He's like, you ain't even bleeding. Give me your ID. That's a case.
Wow.
So him and then all the other officers started laughing. They want to give me a major case because I didn't work hard enough. Otherwise, I would have bloody hands as evidence.
That's it.
So yeah, I hated the field.
Yeah.
I was, you know, had the mind to just lay it down, but I was like, nah, I ain't finna go to closed custody.
Yeah, for this. Yeah, that's what it's for. I think that's what they do it for, to decide how are you going to respond to this.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So where are you going to go with this now? Because I mean, when you hit it with Chad Prather, I was like, oh damn, and now Dustin Sims, and you went Sway in the morning. I was like, man, this is a phenomenal rise. Where you?
Yeah. I think about this every day, and I get asked that all the time. Kevin Hart even had a special called "What's Next," and obviously he's the most prolific comic I think that ever did it. And they're like, that's what people always ask. They're like, hey, what are you gonna do now? I'm gonna tell you just my default answer is always this, and it's been my New Year's resolution the last 3 years, and every year I've progressed, you know, almost 100% of what I've accomplished the year before. But I always say this, I'm so content with where I'm at and what I'm doing that without sounding complacent, because it's the opposite of that, all I want is to sustain what I have. And you used to work out. I can tell you don't care anymore. I'm going to give that on in 2022. That's your New Year's resolution. But as a guy who used to work out a lot and I just started getting back into it, I look back at old pictures of myself and I was like, damn, I was ripped. But I remember how I felt then. And I was like, dude, I don't have veins in my abs and the bottom two, you know, and I was so critical of that. And those were my goals. So I was like, let's get this. And I would work at that. But I look back at it now, I was like, dude, I was in phenomenal shape. So, but I remember not being content with it and always wanting more. Brandon, I'm so content with my life right now. All I want is what's happening currently. Like I had quarter 1 that I just posted on my social media. I have 50 shows in the next 3 months. All I want is that quarter 4 times a year for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And people keep saying that, like, you're on your way. Netflix is next. You're going to be on TV. You're going to have a special. If I don't, I'm not going to be disappointed. And I'm not saying I'm not working towards those things, but the same thing that got me on with Chad, the same thing that Dustin took a chance on me, was just keeping my head down and hitting that dirt. I'm not worried about, it doesn't matter if there's a mound of dirt to move or a field of cotton to plow or any of those things. Just keep hitting it. Wake up early, hit it hard until my hands bleed, and then keep doing that. And whatever doors open, I'm just going to walk through them. So as far as like quantifiable goals, yes, do I want Netflix? Absolutely. If Netflix knocks, I'm going to knock over Chad to get to that door, of course. But as far as, do I want that? Yes, absolutely. Will I be upset if I don't get it? Hell no. I mean, dude, I make a very, very good living doing what I'm doing now, booking, producing, and I get to do everything. I've got 5 substantial sources of income from comedy. All I want to do is sustain that. What could be next? Sure. A streamed special could be next. I plan to shoot a special, sure. There's a lot of people you could shoot a comedy special tomorrow. It doesn't give it validation. But, so those things I plan to do. As far as what kind of emotional investment or career investment I have in those things, it's nil, because as long as I can keep doing what I'm doing now, I'm going to be happy. And I'm to the point now, I've already exceeded everything in comedy that I ever thought I would. I've already exceeded it. So the next thing is just, it feels like, just icing on the cake. So what's next for me is just keep my head down and try to get everything that I can. I'm trying to book every show that I can, be everywhere that I can, avail myself and make myself as visible and as public as possible. And no matter what happens, I just want to keep trending that way. So what's next? Upward trajectory. I'm not trying to measure how vertical I want to take it as long as we stay vertical. I don't want to plateau and I definitely don't want to descend. But that's my plan, dude. And I can't even emphasize how much I love my life and where it's at right now. Not even relative to where it was, which only makes it that much more. It's like jumping out of a hot tub into the cold pool. The pool was cold by itself, but when you jump out of a hot tub, it's that much more glaring. It's the same thing. So it's basically just everything that I've done to get here, just keep doing that.
Yeah.
So, and the bloody hands and pounding the dirt analogy, I mean, it's perfect. It's just, you hit the dirt with no quantifiable goal to attain by hitting the dirt to you. But all you needed to do was do enough work to make your hands bleed to avoid the major case. Yeah. So you can get the job in the kitchen next week and get out of the host squad. Nobody stays in a host squad unless you like it. So it's either, do you leave the host squad and go to the kitchen or laundry or library and get a good job? Or do you say, hey, fuck this, lay it down and go to closed custody. Yeah. So it's just keep pounding that dirt, man. So, but it's so much fun, dude. It's so much fun, and I don't think I'd trade it for anything, any of it, to be honest. So.
Well, that's a good point. That's a good place to end it for you. Being at this place in your life where you've come from, where you are now, and to know that whatever kind of future success or continue up that vertical route comes is icing on the cake. Surprise. It's great.
It is.
But where you're at right now, it's
already past where I ever wanted to be. But this is a funny perspective, and it's definitely applicable for this podcast. I remember being home for like 4 months, and I'm making $700 a week, working for some guy who's selling electronics. I'm playing, volleyball and bowling and sports, and then I'm working that job, and I'm going to college. Living in my mom's house. I bought a 1995 Camaro with 300,000 miles on it. And I remember I bought a laptop. I bought an iPod, like the old one that you spun. And then I had a cell phone that I had just gotten. And coming from prison, I was in my mom's guest room, which was my room at the time. It might have been 3, might have been 6 months out of prison. And I remember coming home one day after getting another paycheck and buying which one of those are, and I laid not my tablet, because there were no tablets. I laid my laptop, my iPod, and my cell phone out on the bed, and I put the keys to my car next to it. It's a 95 Camaro. It's worth like $2,000.
Yeah.
And I looked it out, and I remember looking at this like, look at this fucking treasure. Look at what I've accomplished. Look at my life. And I remember right then going, who deserves this much? Like, I went from prison and now I'm just dripped in luxury. Like, look at this. Like, all of it was bought on Craigslist, dude. Like, none of it was new. But it was like a laptop, an iPod that was scratched up, and a cell phone that was like a Motorola Razor that you opened with no camera. And then the car keys that were like, didn't even have a boop boop. It was a fucking key you stuck in the door for a 95 Camaro. But I remember looking at that like, what's next? Like, I don't need anything else. Like, this is all I need. Look at my phone. Like, I got the internet, and I got a phone and an iPod. Now all those things are one object.
Yeah.
And I got a car, and I'm out. But so I've had that same perspective then. And now, it's 15 years later. This is March 1 will be 15 years I've been out. It's in 6 weeks. And now it's, I have a house, I have 5 cars, and I got 5 sources of income, and it's the same thing. And I'm like, dude, look at this. And even though now it's more realistic, it's more real, because by somebody else's standard, but I had the same perspective then 15 years ago. And also all I want to do is just keep that same perspective.
Yeah.
And then in 15 more years, who knows what it'll be, but it doesn't matter. Even when I had, that townhome I lived in for 7.5 years, I paid $8.25 a month, but it had a washer and dryer, and I made it my own. I painted it myself. I laid flooring myself, and I love that place. I have a beautiful house now, of course, but I was as happy with that as I was with this.
Yeah.
And it's just there's not a degree of it, if I can say anything, because I think from where we've been, it's either you're content or you're not. And I think after that, none of those things are what make it content. Yes, I love the success in comedy. I love doing theaters in front of 1,000 people who give you a standing ovation. Shout out Chad for making that happen. That was awesome. And then the volume of shows. Shout out Dustin for those things. But my mental well-being, my peace of mind, those things aren't going away, bro. Like, they're not. And none of these things contribute to that. But it just makes it a lot easier. So I'm super fortunate. I'm super blessed. And yeah, I appreciate, you letting me fucking come on here and do this shit too. It's fucking awesome, man.
Yeah, no doubt. Thank you. I mean.
Yeah, and if you ever want to come to the show, again, anybody who watches this, if you have me on social media, Jesse is funny on everything. If you message that you saw this from Brandon's stream, from his YouTube, from anything with Brandon, or the educational side of this, message me on Facebook. I'll give you free tickets to a show, you and your whole group. So if you want to bring 10 people, I got you. I want to contribute any way I can to help out with that. And there'll be, I do at least 50 shows a year in the Houston area and over 100 in Texas. So wherever you're at, if you see that and you see this, message me, bring this interview up, and I'll give free tickets to whomever you can do with that. So, and if there's anything else I can do, let me know.
Awesome. All right, thanks.
Hey, man, I appreciate it, bro.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, you want to tell me what we got here?
Oh, yeah. Houston native, also Houston local. This used to be all the Texans, and then the whole team is dismantled. So now there's none of these guys. Deshaun Watson's still hanging on. He's about to go. Peyton Manning. These are the 2 Michael Jordan jerseys. This is actually my best piece. This is from Barcelona.
Yeah.
1992 was actually signed in Barcelona. Everything here is signed by the player, and everything's all certified. And this is my huge Astro fan. I was at every World Series game in 2017, even in LA when they won. So this is the whole team, not the whole team, but most of the starters. And these are the throwback Astro jerseys. All my football helmets. I have Zeke in the national championship helmet because I don't have any Cowboy stuff. So we'll have no Cowboys. So if you play for the Cowboys, you don't get the star here. I did the two GOATs up here, Brady and LeBron. I know everybody's MJ, but I think
LeBron.
I think he's a better basketball player. I don't think he's I don't know. He's kind of wearing on me here lately. So stay off Twitter, LeBron. So
for real.
And then these are shoes, Cam Newton cleats down here. These are Allen Iverson signed by Iverson, Kobe signed by Kobe, Durant signed by Durant. This is Jamal Charles, and that's a Torello and shoe. A lot of it's just a white trash retirement fund right here. This is my office. I do some writing and stuff in here. These are some of my favorite ones. Derek Jeter, Kobe, Allen Iverson, Aaron Judge. This is pretty cool. This is Tiger Woods. This is actually a tournament used ball where he used that ball in a tournament. It's stamped with Tiger, signed flag, Mike Tyson signed glove, Phil Mickelson, Jack Nicklaus signed flags, a bunch of baseballs. It's one of my favorite pieces. This is when McGregor fought Mayweather in the money fight. Wow. I got a McGregor signed glove, a Mayweather signed boxing glove. So obviously that's not the glove he used
right
in the fight, but just some other stuff. I got
This is when I
one of the cars. Yeah, it's my NSX. So my favorite car in high school was the old 99 to 05 Acura NSX, and I always wanted one, but they made the new ones. They came out in 2017, 18. This is the 2020. So, yeah, I like this one. And then some more jerseys and signed photos and stuff. Little slingshots, my little weekend toy.
Yeah.
And then these up here are kind of cool. These are my Super Bowl tickets. I've been to 4 Super Bowls. So, not a lot of people on the rec yard in prison that get out and get to go to 4 Super Bowls. So, I've come a long way.
Yeah.
So I put the commemorative coin and had the tickets of each one I went to framed and hung up. So
well, this is one of the hilarious things about your.
Oh yeah. This is how.
What does that say?
No kids. Yeah. It's because No More Crime didn't fit. It was too long.
Yeah.
So.
It's pretty awesome.
Thank you, man. We've come a long way.